There's no secret. Social Security is a broken system, needs fixed. But that's the secret. How are they going to fix it? How can we fix it? I've got 8 ideas we're going to consider and walk through together coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of The Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. All right, so we know Social Security is broken, and it actually, unfortunately, has gotten a little worse here during the pandemic. Previously, the projection was Social Security was going to go insolvent, in 2037, I believe, was the most recent analysis pre-pandemic. And then it was 2035, then 2034. Now, most recently, the expectation is Social Security is to be insolvent by 2033, just a mere 12 years from now. To level the playing field, insolvency doesn't mean that Social Security is just going to go to zero. And what it effectively means is that your or recipients of Social Security will see their benefits drop to match the current funding level, which is about 78%. So approximately a 22% drop if there's no correction or policy changes done by the time Social Security does reach that insolvency point, okay? So that's what that means. Now, is that going to happen? I can't see it. Guys, I can't see it. If 2020 and this little experiment of closing the economy was any indication, if they cut benefits, if they just say wholesale, this large segment of the population that's drawing Social Security will just wholesale see a 22% reduction in their income, that would be economic devastation. If you or your parent or whomever sees a 22% drop in, for most people, their largest source of income in retirement, that would be devastating to the economy. I just cannot see it happen. Now, I can't predict the future, just like you can't. But to me, it would be economic disaster if they allowed that to happen. So how are they going to fix it? Well, they've talked about means testing, right? That's sort of hasn't been discussed recently. They've talked about investing it in the stock market. My goodness, if they did that, then the Fed would be manipulating things. We'd never taper, and interest rates would be zero forever, and the Fed would just keep printing money because we've got to push that stock market up and keep the Social Security going. They haven't talked about privatizing Social Security for a long time. Really, the debate is, do we increase taxes or do we change the full retirement age, which is sort of a reduction in benefits, but not a cut in benefits, okay? Investment news, the kind of financial tabloids came out with an article recently designed for financial advisors about managing clients' expectations with Social Security. It's terrible. It's a terrible article. However, so don't read it. I'm going to link it below. It's not that good, and it's for financial advisors. But in it, there's a chart of some of the latest and greatest ideas from the Social Security Administration, the 8 ideas that they've come up with to help solve the funding gap and reform Social Security. And what you'll see in this chart, we're going to talk through them here and the merits of each of these ideas, but how much of the funding gap that currently exists, how much of it would be filled in by each of these ideas. The first category of changes of reform proposals would really be an increase in tax, okay? And so the first one on the list, immediately increase the FICA tax, currently at 12.4% to 15.8%. Now, the biggest thing here is that completely solves the funding gap. You can see 101% there. But this is not entirely accurate what they're saying here. Right now, you and I, we pay FICA, which is 7.65% on our wages. It's a tax that we pay on our wages up to approximately $140,000, $150,000, okay? And then 6.2% of that drops off. And we continue to pay 1.45 for the rest of our wages, all right? So that FICA, 7.65, 6.2 is what goes to pay into the Social Security system. The 1.45 goes into pay Medicare. You pay FICA, Your employer pays FICA as well. They match it as well. So they're doing 6.2% towards Social Security and 1.45% to Medicare on all of your wages, again, up to that 140, 150 frame limit. Okay, so what they're talking about is that combined 6.2 and 6.2, 12.4 going into Social Security. If we instantly, not gradual, but instantly increase that to what, 15.8, that will solve the problem. And so that's a what? That's a 3.4% increase. So you would see your FICA increase by 1.7%. It would go from 7.65% to what's that, 9.35% immediately, and so would the employer. Now, that'd be a pretty big tax hit, okay? A tax increase, but that's what would be needed to instantly solve the problem. The tax increases that I saw most recently being really, strongly proposed by the Social Security Administration were the next couple, and that's a gradual increase of the FICA tax by a small amount from 12.4 to 14.8. The problem is, and I hadn't seen this analysis before, just read some of the other white papers and whatnot by the Social Security Administration where they're really strongly proposing these ideas, but that would only increase or fill in the funding gap by about half. If you add in, which is currently being talked about within some of the proposals coming out of the White House, add the FICA tax on earnings above $400,000. If they bring that back, that fills in about 60% of the funding gap. So that's currently being kicked around in some proposals right now. We've talked about it. I've shared some of that proposal on previous videos here. That again, all of us will pay Social Security taxes for this portion of FICA tax up to the normal wage limit around 150, and then it stops. But then if your income for the year then gets up to 400 and above, you'd then have to restart paying that Social Security tax. That would fill in probably what looks like a pretty sizable amount of the funding gap. Now, what's interesting, if they increase this FICA tax, and so it's on all wages for everyone universally, okay, it only increases, or it only fills in that funding gap by about 65%. That one would be a hard sell in my opinion. So that's increased tax. The other side of the Social Security coin flip is reducing benefits. And I don't think they're gonna go out and just slash benefits for everyone. I mean, guys, we are printing money hand over fist so that people can continue to spend and continue to, make ends meet, right? So to slash benefits for everyone, that does the opposite. That would push more people into social programs and would reduce spending and all sorts of things that we're spending trillions of dollars on right now to avoid. I just don't see that happen. So what are some other ways that they could cut benefits? Well, they could readjust their inflation expectation, or their inflation calculation is probably a better term, and move it off of the CPIW and move it to something different, okay? They could come up with their own way of adjusting for inflation. They could even cut inflation altogether. That's not going to do much when you look at these numbers as far as how much of the funding gap it will fill in. The other way of cutting benefits is pushing that full retirement age out further. And what that actually means is force people to pay into the system more, or give them a greater penalty if they choose to draw early, which I think is what most people would do. You can see here, pushing that Social Security age, that full retirement age from 67 to 68 is about a 13% fix, but you push it all the way to age 70, that's a 47% fix. Okay, so what's the takeaway? Which of these do you like? Which of these are you a fan of? I'm not a fan of any, and yet I just know, because of the great work done by one of our all-star financial planners here, Ben DeBach, the system is broken. He did a deep dive presentation to our team about, hey, these are the demographics, how the world was back in the 30s when Social Security was introduced. Here's what it looks like now. It's just very different. The system obviously needs to change. It was very, very helpful, but I'm not a fan of any of these changes. It's just I'm very much not a fan of the thing going into insolvency here. So likely, in my opinion, the solution will be some sort of combination of the two. And I also guess that the first fix isn't going to be the right one or the best one. They'll probably make a couple stabs at this. It seems like the one most likely to be advanced is the adding the Social Security tax on income, on folks that have income over $400,000. We will see. So what does this mean for you? Can your budget support a 2% increase in tax? Can it support a 2% increase in tax? I would hope so. I would hope you've got a budget where you've got enough margin that all of a sudden, if your FICA tax grows from 7.65% to 9.35%, that doesn't wreck your budget and doesn't throw your finances off axle. If you own a small business, okay, can you afford a 2% increase in tax on your largest expense item? Right? That's probably the bigger one than each of us individually. It's those of you that own a business. Could you stomach this 2% increase? That would be astronomical. Could you do it? Maybe something to plan for as you're planning your budgets and forecasting for next year. Can your retirement plan survive if they do push that full retirement age out until age 70, and therefore, well, you still want to retire at 65, and therefore your Social Security haircut or your reduction is going to be more? Can your retirement plan survive if there is that haircut, that adjustment, that additional reduction to your Social Security? And then the granddaddy of them all, if the worst of the worst happens and this thing is allowed to go into insolvency, can your retirement plan work if there's a 22% reduction in your Social Security benefits? That's your homework. That's what I would tell you to work on. Now, do you crunch those numbers on the back of a napkin or do a whole bunch of analysis yourself? No, I'd have you work with your CFP. Work with your CFP on that budget. If you're a business owner, my goodness, work with your CFP on budgeting and forecasting and what these adjustments could mean. And certainly for your own individual retirement projections, your retirement plans, talk to your CFP, model, make an adjustment, see what it looks like. Even if you don't like the result, see what it looks like if there are these cuts in Social Security, and therefore what adjustments you might need to make in your financial life if that happens, so you have the clarity and confidence that you're still on track, or you know what you need to do to stay on track, okay? We know Social Security is broken. We know there will be some adjustments. We just don't know which ones. This analysis, recent analysis by the Social Security Administration, helps us see what they're thinking. Now you plan for those range of options with your CFP. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can always contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with a K. WiseMoneyShow.com. You can find us there as well, or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.